Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. In case this year hasn't been difficult enough for us, this week we experienced below the tragic, the tragic murder of Rabbi Zvi Kogan, the Chabad rabbi in the UAE. Today, instead of just dedicating our talk in his memory, I want to talk a little bit about him and what it means. Also, a question I've been getting a lot is after his name, we've been putting the letters HYD. People have been asking me, what does that mean? I'll talk about that. And I'll try to connect it all to this week's Torah portion and see if we can somewhat, at least, I don't know if we'll find peace. I don't know if we'll find anything on the other side of our talk today, but at least we can have the conversation. I want to begin with honesty. I don't have answers. No one has answers. I don't even want to attempt to answer. So often we tend to focus on the great existential questions when tragedy hits, why bad things happen to good people. That's not that's not my role, and I don't think it's even possible. Rabbi Zvi Kogan, Hashem Yikom Domo, was stolen from us, and his murder is an unthinkable tragedy. And we know that Hashem is perfect. Hashem is perfect in all his ways. And that doesn't take away any of the pain. Attending the funeral in Israel, the weeping cries of his father, it doesn't take away the pain. Right now, our minds are fractured and our hearts are aching. I think over the past 25 years and even more recent, we've become used to this word. Just keeps on just kind of being floated around as if it's just another word, another event, the word terrorism. It's used so much. I think for a lot of us, maybe it's lost meaning. Terrorism. Let's call it what it is. It's not just violence, it's violence designed to instill fear. Its purpose is to make us question our safety, to question our purpose, our hope. That's the real goal of those who commit despicable, disgusting acts. Here's what I know. For the Jewish people, fear is not an option. Not now, not ever. Rabbi Zvi Kogan, his life was a shining example of what it means to live with purpose. At just 28 years old, not even 2 years married, he was building a vibrant Jewish community. And I say vibrant, it's unbelievable what's happened just in the past 4 years to the Jewish community of the UAE. And he's been part of that. He wasn't just running a kosher store, he was creating a hub of Jewish life. There's a young man, Natanel, in our community who his work took him to the UAE last year. And in the middle of the war, he was very concerned about being a Jew there. And I told him to go to Rabbi Kogan, to go to the store there. And he he went there, and right away the rabbi greeted him. And he was there for Passover. The rabbi set him up for meals for Shabbat with a Passover Seder. He said, and he's crying today, having developed this really personal connection with Rabbi Kogan over the month that he was there. And he said, as a Jew in the UAE, I would not have been able to have kosher food or experience the holidays or do anything without his help. He was the one who was just my 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 guiding light during that time. This is just one example of who he was. And I'm sure there's thousands of Natanels that have stories just like that. He was the first line, the first person that you met as a Jew in the UAE. I believe he believed in the potential of every person he met. And he lived with an unshakable sense of purpose. So, what do we do now? I've been thinking about it for the past few days. How do we make sense of this loss? The answer is we don't. We don't have to make sense of it, but we do have to respond to it. And I think, again, shifting the focus, so often we focus on the existential and not on the practical. We don't have to make sense of it, but we do have to respond to it. The Rebbe often taught us that after harsh judgment, din, after harsh judgment, compassion follows. The Rebbe said it a few times right after terrible tragedies, that after harsh judgment, compassion follows. And so our response needs to be one of compassion. Look for the compassion, because after harsh judgment, it must be here. It's obvious. Our job is to transform the pain of this moment into an explosion of goodness and kindness. Every mitzvah that we do, the lighting of Shabbat candles, putting a coin in a tzedakah box, putting on tefillin, every single mitzvah that we do, that connection brings divine compassion to the world. These small acts, they seem almost just a little act, but collectively, all of us, this is what dispels the darkness of terror. This is what we do. This is the Jewish way. We respond by bringing more goodness into the world. Remember, the terrorist's goal is to paralyze us with fear, to make us abandon our purpose, to make us think twice. But our response is exactly the opposite. We double down. We bring more light, more action, more holiness into the world. Rabbi Kogan's life wasn't just about survival. It was about creating something lasting, something meaningful. And I think that's what we need to take with us. Not just his memory, but his mission. This weekend, the Chabad shluchim, the Chabad rabbis from all across the world, as Rabbi Kogan was one of us, are going to have our annual convention, and it's absolutely impossible to reconcile the fact that the family is going to be sitting shiva this week during what is supposed to be the most uplifting time when we go to New York to Crown Heights and we rededicate ourselves to this purpose, to this mission. And so this week, as of course I'm sure there'll be a lot of crying, but I can guarantee you there will also be a tremendous, tremendous amount of action, of double and redoubled action, of response to with goodness and kindness. Think about this. I said I wasn't going to talk existential, but maybe I will. Why are we here? What's the purpose of our lives? So many people share with me that their life is just devoid of meaning. It doesn't all, nothing makes sense. What I can tell you, what's amazing about Rabbi Kogan's life and the life of a shliach is there's no time for it not to be filled with meaning. It's fully filled with meaning. He dedicated his life to bringing light to others. And that light, it doesn't end with his tragic murder. We are now carrying that torch, and it's up to us to carry it forward. When we see such darkness in the world, it's very easy to become overwhelmed. But the truth is, every single one of us, you and me, we have the power to make a difference. And we do it through small, consistent acts of kindness, acts of holiness that shape our lives, that fill our lives with meaning. We do it by being there for each other, by building stronger communities, by creating spaces where light and love can thrive. So this week, I want to ask you to reflect on this. When you light your Shabbat candles, reflect on the light, on the meaning. This is filling your life and your home with meaning. Today, right now, you can even do it as you're watching this. You go over to the tzedakah box and put a coin in. That tzedakah is not just supporting a cause. It's making a statement of goodness, of generosity. That will always outweigh hatred. That will always outweigh violence. Every single time we teach someone about their tradition, about their heritage, we're planting a seed of hope. Perhaps that seed of hope will grow for generations to come. It's very easy to underestimate the impact of small actions, but they add up and they create ripples that spread beyond what we can see. Just think about the ripple effect of Rabbi Kogan's life and how it's touched us. The people he touched, the community he built, the inspiration he gave, those ripples will continue to spread. I want to just make a note about people keep on asking me about the HYD. HYD stands for Hashem Yikom Domo. It means may God avenge their blood. Now, generally, when someone passes away, we say, you'll see often BDE, Baruch Dayan HaEmet. Blessed is the judge of truth. But when someone is murdered for being Jewish, when we speak of the name of someone who was tragically murdered just for being Jewish, we add the phrase, may God avenge their blood. It's our call for justice. I I think it's a profound expression of faith in God's ultimate role as the arbiter of the justice of the world. And this is something that was used during the Crusades, during the times of pogroms for the victims of the pogroms, the Holocaust, and even more recently, the tragedies of the Pittsburgh Tree of Life and the October 7th uh, Simchat Torah attack. These these murdered Jews, we call them Kedoshim. We call them the holy ones. Their death are referred to as Kiddush Hashem, as the sanctification of God's name. They represent the ultimate sacrifice, regardless of who they are, the sacrifice of being a Jew. I know it doesn't make any sense. Nobody asked for this. Nobody would ever even dream of this or want this. The Rebbe often referred to the Jewish soldiers and others that were killed as Kedoshim. So I know what you're thinking. Why do we turn to God for justice? The Torah teaches us that retribution belongs to God alone, that human courts ensure accountability and they maintain societal order, I hope. But vengeance that's driven by rage, has no place in Jewish law. So we seek tzedek, justice. That's what we ask for. That justice restores the balance to the world. And when justice seems out of reach, like when a Jew is murdered for being a Jew, we cry out to God like Abraham did. Shall we judge all of the earth? Shall the judge of all of the earth not do justice? That's our cry. And this cry reminds us that Jewish blood is not cheap. And our role as the bearers of God's moral and just message to the world will not be diminished. And through this wish and through this prayer, we affirm our trust in God's justice and we reject the chaos of vengeance. Again, it's not a cry for revenge. It's a plea for balance, a plea for order in a world where morality prevails. And now I want to get into this week's Torah portion. I don't know if I can really connect it. I'll say that we will dedicate our thoughts, our look into the Torah portion in Rabbi Zvi's memory. Maybe, let's see, as I, I work through this idea, maybe we'll be able to connect it. I want to talk about wells. If you look at this week's Torah portion, you're going to see it's the theme of the parsha. Wells. I apparently that was the place to to find your mate. That was, I mean, saw you at the well. That was the place that people went to find their mate. It obviously was a community center. I mean, look, the greatest thing that ever happened to the civilized world is indoor plumbing. I mean, if you want to debate me on that, fine. But at least that's what I think. But what it did, obviously, to every upside, there's a downside. The downside to indoor plumbing is that we lost the community gathering of the well. Now, our patriarchs and matriarchs, the founding fathers and mothers of Judaism, they were enthralled with wells. I mean, I'll just go through a few of them. The Torah tells us of Abraham's involvement in well digging. He rebuked the king of the Philistines for allowing his servants to seize one of his wells. And then Abraham performs this elaborate ceremony with the king And at the ceremony, the king swears that the well would remain in Abraham's possession. But Abraham's association with wells pales. I mean, really pales in comparison to his son Isaac's connection to wells. First of all, we learn that he's a frequent visitor to a spring named Lachei. That's where he ends up meeting uh, Eliezer, and well, he actually, sorry, that's where he's going to end up meeting Rivka and later settles there. He engages in relentless digging to uncover underground springs. He reclaims the wells that his father dug, but were plugged after his death. We also read of at least another four wells that his servants dig anew. We're even told that the names Isaac granted his wells and the battles he fought to hold on to them. This is how much Isaac is and Yitzchak is connected to wells. When the Torah describes in next week's Torah portion his journey from Israel to the east, it tells us later of Jacob that Jacob looked and behold a well in the field. And guess what happens? Jacob spends time at the well, and there he finds the love of his life, met at the well. So, obvious question. Why were our patriarchs and matriarchs so connected to wells? And why does the Torah, a book of instruction and teachings, not a history book, a roadmap for life, why does it dedicate part of this week's portion, Toldot, to discuss the details of Isaac's struggles to discover wells? In Jewish thought, water represents wisdom. It represents inspiration. Just like water quenches the thirst of an arid body, rejuvenating its spirit, resuscitating its energy. The gifts of wisdom, the gifts of enlightenment, they refresh a soul and they grant it inspiration, they grant it vitality. We have two sources of water in the world. We have the waters above ground, the oceans, the rivers, the lakes, the streams, the rain, and the water that flows beneath the earth, covered by grit. These waters that flow beneath the earth, they seep out from sand and from gravel, from rocks and from the little cracks and plains. And as they struggle to emerge from beneath the earth, it's the earth that conceals them. Now, we would assume that the restricted flow of water fighting to emerge from the rock and gravel would be inferior to the unrestricted smooth beds of water, the ocean, the river. But really, the truth is that there's something uniquely refreshing, no pun intended, and clear, no pun intended, about spring water. The very fact that these waters are hidden beneath the grounds keeps them free from pollution. It keeps them free from germs. It grants them a freshness, a sparkle that you can't find in the above ground waters. Plus, the journey through rocks filters it. It refines these waters so much. And so they become rich with minerals and nutrients. Everybody wants spring water. Today, spring water comes bottled. Apparently, that's where it's from, bottles. So, two sources of physical waters in our world parallel two sources of wisdom and inspiration in our lives. There's wisdom and inspiration born above the mess of life's challenges. It comes to lucid people at lucid moments. It's straightforward, it's easy, it's smooth. These are the waters that emerge from the hearts of pristine spiritual individuals, men and women unsoiled by filth, by muck. And then there's the wisdom that emerges from life's grind, from the struggle, from the pain, from the mourning, from failure. There's the clarity and passion born from hearts that are tarnished by toxicity. When a person who's burdened by life, bogged down by trauma, by fear, by anxiety, when a human being troubled by their mental health, by their earthly nature, by their urges, when they burst out with a yearning to transcend the dirt and connect to truth. This small, restricted flow of water seeping out from the sandy, rocky psyche is more refreshing and potent than all of the serene waters above the ground. When a Jew, when a human feeling so distant, when we engage in a mitzvah that cry out to God in yearning, when we make a move to excavate the inner faith, the resilience, the idealism that lays buried in our souls, when someone connects to this spring of divine infinity that flows deep below our earthiness. This is the most sparkling. This is the most refreshing water to the soul, to the universe, to God. And I think this is why our patriarchs and matriarchs, our fathers and mothers, were so interested in digging and preserving wells. They taught us to fight for and to cherish those moments of truth, fleeting as they are, those small sparks of idealism buried within the deep rubble of trauma, of mourning, of confusion. They're so holy. This is the purpose of life. This is the purpose of living, to discover the heaven within earth, to find the springs of joy, the springs of confidence, the springs of wholesomeness that are always flowing beneath our surface. It's so hard because the waves of the ocean, they keep on knocking us down. The world just keeps on knocking us down. Something else. Just when we said we've had enough, it's something else. And that's why the springs, the wells, the waters beneath are so important to us. They're so powerful. They're so meaningful. So my blessing to you this Shabbat. On Shabbats, we're not allowed to mourn. Even a family that's in the middle of their week of Shiva, of mourning, on Shabbat, there's no mourning. We can talk about why a different time. But this Shabbat, may we be comforted. May we find the deep wells beneath. May we find the strength to be comforted, the strength to be resilient, and the strength to be able to stand in the way of terrorism and say, we are stronger. We are stronger. And may Hashem bless and comfort the family of Rabbi Zvi Kogan, together with all of the families of Israel and Jerusalem. And may we know no more of murder and no more of suffering. May we enter a time of true peace, time of Mashiach, a time when we put an end to all of these difficult, horrid moments. And may that be today. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a wonderful week.